Ever noticed how loud the world has become? Everyone's talking, explaining, justifying, desperately trying to be understood, even by those who never cared to listen. But what if the most powerful thing you could do is say nothing at all? Not out of weakness, but because your silence speaks louder than their noise. This isn't about ego, it's about energy. Because when you stop chasing, stop begging, stop explaining, that's when they finally start wondering, what changed? Hey, Stoic warrior, welcome back. We live in a world obsessed with validation. People try to prove they're right, that they're worthy, that they matter. They explain themselves, and when that fails, they over-explain. Sometimes they even beg, just to be noticed, just to be seen. But the Stoic, he doesn't beg, he doesn't chase, he doesn't plead for attention or try to win approval from a world too distracted to care. Because the Stoic knows this. Silence is strength. Most people, when they're hurt, when they're rejected or misunderstood, panic. They rush in. They try to fix everything by explaining themselves to people who already chose not to understand. That's not courage. That's desperation pretending to be bravery. Think about it. You call someone, no answer. You text again, still nothing. So what do? You send another message, a long, emotional paragraph, hoping they'll finally see your worth. But the truth is harsh. The more you explain, the more you beg, the more power you hand over, and that is not Stoic. The Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, they mastered the discipline of silence, not because they didn't feel, but because they understood a truth most never learn. The more we value what's outside our control, the less control we have. Epictetus, when you chase someone's attention or beg for their understanding, you're saying, my peace depends on you. But that's not peace, that's prison. Real strength is this: someone disrespects you, and you walk away, not to be petty, not to hurt them, but because your dignity doesn't argue, it doesn't plead, it doesn't explain, it silently detaches. That silence, it isn't empty, it's composed, disciplined, anchored in self. It says, I don't need your approval to trust myself. And this kind of silence, it shakes people. Because when you stop reacting, they lose the control they thought they had over you. So, today, let's dive deep into the silence that builds power. Not the silence of fear or avoidance, but the silence of inner clarity. The silence that makes your absence louder than any message you could have sent. The silence that makes them think twice. We're about to unpack 6 powerful truths. 6 Stoic reasons why silence is your secret weapon, and why those who embrace it never chase, never beg, never explain. So if you've been overdiving, if you've been misunderstood, if you've ever chased someone who walked away from you, this is your turning point. Let this be the reminder you didn't know you needed. Before we get into truth number 1, do me a small favor. Like this video if it already resonates. Drop a comment with your thoughts or affirmations as we go. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe to Life Through Stoicism for more content that sharpens your mind and strengthens your spirit. Now, don't skip a second, because one sentence, one truth, might just change the way you see yourself forever. Drop this in the comments right now. A reminder to yourself, my silence is my power. Truth number 1, silence makes them feel your absence, not just hear your words. Have you ever noticed something strange? The moment you stop explaining, Stop chasing. Suddenly, people start noticing. They start thinking. They pause. That's the paradox of silence. It doesn't push them away, it pulls them in. Now think back to the last time you were hurt. Maybe someone ghosted you, disrespected you, or gave you the cold shoulder without explanation. Your instincts probably screamed, say something, fight back, defend your worth. But here's the reality. The more you talk, the less they listen. The more you chase, the further they run. The more you explain, the less they value your words. And yet, when you go silent, something shifts. Suddenly, your absence becomes louder than your presence ever was. He who does not understand your silence will probably not understand your words. Albert Hubbard, the Stoics, understood this thousands of years ago. Silence creates discomfort in ways noise never could. When someone expects you to plead and you don't. When someone expects drama and you detach instead. You don't just walk away, you hold up a mirror. That mirror reflects everything they've done without you needing to say a word. Your silence says, I saw what you did. I felt how you treated me, but I value myself too much to explain it to you. And that silence, it doesn't come from ego. It comes from clarity. Because when you're clear, you realize, if they cared, they'd ask. If they respected you, they'd reach out. If they were emotionally mature, they wouldn't need a speech to recognize your worth. So, you stay silent. And in that silence, you reclaim every ounce of power you once gave away. You stop wasting energy trying to be understood by people who don't even understand themselves. You stop trying to heal through conversation because some wounds, they heal better in silence. And yes, it's uncomfortable because your silence will trigger them. It will confuse them. It will raise questions like, why isn't he reacting? Why didn't she respond? Did they stop caring? That's when the power shifts. Because silence speaks the one truth they can't ignore. You don't owe them an explanation. Not anymore. Truth number 2. When you stay silent, you hear the truth louder. The world is constantly loud. But silence lets you listen. Not to others, to yourself. In moments of betrayal, heartbreak, or confusion, most people run outward. They call 5 friends, scroll endlessly on social media, or even confront the person who hurt them, desperately hoping the right conversation will fix the wrong person. But the Stoic chooses differently. He turns inward. He goes silent, not because he feels nothing, but because he knows truth doesn't come from noise. It comes from reflection. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Marcus Aurelius, when you truly go silent, your mind starts to settle. And in that calm, truth rises to the surface. You begin to hear things like, they never really respected me, I just didn't want to see it. I'm not angry they left, I'm angry I stayed too long. I don't need closure, I need peace. And these truths, they don't come in a notification. They come in those quiet hours, when the noise fades, and you finally hear. Your self-silence gives you the space to separate emotion from value. Because when you're hurt, your emotions scream. Go after them, prove yourself, explain everything. But when you're silent, your values whisper. Keep your dignity. Protect your peace. Let them go. This is why the Stoics never reacted out of impulse. They didn't explode in anger or make decisions in chaos. They embraced what you might call sacred stillness, a disciplined pause before the storm. Truth, 3. You don't earn respect by raising your voice, but by staying grounded and calm. Modern society constantly encourages you to speak your truth, express your feelings, and never let anyone disrespect you. But here's what most people miss. You don't earn respect by yelling louder. You earn it by remaining calm, even in the storm of noise around you. The quieter you are, the clearer you see people for who they are. You don't need to ask, do they care? Just observe their actions. The answer will reveal itself. You don't need to beg for an explanation, because the truth will unfold on its own through your stillness. And most importantly, you stop reacting emotionally and start responding with intention and clarity. Silence isn't passive. It's focused, purposeful, and a gateway to inner wisdom, a door that only a few have the courage to open. So when you're uncertain, overwhelmed, or mentally scattered, don't react. Be still. The answer isn't out there. It's within you, and you can only hear it in the quiet. Truth number 4. Begging for closure is a form of self-betrayal. Let's talk about something many people carry silently and rarely admit out loud. Begging for closure, for that final explanation. That clean goodbye often leads to more pain, not peace. We've all longed for it. One last conversation to bring clarity. One honest answer to help us let go. But here's the harsh truth. If someone truly cared, you wouldn't have to beg for closure. They would offer it out of basic respect. And if they don't, then your silence is the closure. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. Epictetus might not seem connected at first, but it says everything. When you stop chasing an explanation and start living in alignment with your values, you stop needing anyone to validate your pain. The pain is real, but needing them to explain why they hurt you. That's when you give your power of healing to the very person who broke you, and then you fall into the loop. They hurt you. You demand answers. They respond with silence, coldness, or avoidance. You feel even more abandoned. And the cycle repeats until you finally wake up. Closure isn't something they give you. It's something you give yourself when you choose silence and walk away. Your mind may whisper, if I just told them how I feel, if I just explained it better, if we just had one last conversation. But here's the truth. You're speaking to someone who made peace with hurting you. You're explaining yourself to someone who already chose to walk away. You're wasting energy hoping someone will fix the expectations you created. And that's not closure. That's self-abandonment. The Stoics understood how emotions cloud judgment, especially when the ego gets involved. You want to be seen as the good one. You want to be understood. You want them to finally get it. But chasing that only pulls you further away from your own growth. Real closure is when you tell yourself, what they gave me is all they were capable of giving. You accept that no explanation will make them kinder, more loving, or more honest. You stop waiting for a conversation that will never come. And in that acceptance, your power returns. The people who hurt you don't need to understand your worth. You do. The people who walked away don't need to say goodbye. You can say it without saying a word. The ones who ghosted you don't need a second chance. Your silence is their answer. So, stop writing those messages you'll never send. Stop rehearsing the perfect speech in your head. Stop chasing closure from people who were never emotionally open in the first place. Stay silent, and let that silence be the sacred ground where your self-respect begins to rise again. Truth number 5. Silence strips away the mask that words try to hide. When you go silent, something powerful begins to unfold. Masks start to fall. Words can be beautiful, but they can also be deceiving. People say what sounds right. They say what they think you want to hear. They use explanations, justifications, and apologies to build a version of themselves they want you to believe. But silence doesn't lie. It doesn't pretend. It simply watches and waits for the truth to reveal itself. What you do speaks so loudly that I cannot hear what you say. Ralph Waldo Emerson, the Stoics, understood this at their core. They didn't judge people based on apologies. They judged them based on patterns. And the best way to recognize a pattern: stop talking and observe. Because silence isn't passive, it's intentional observation. When you stop explaining yourself, you create the space for others to show who they really are. And believe me, they will. The one who truly respects you will feel your absence and return with honesty. The one who used you will quietly disappear because they never valued you to begin with. The manipulator, they'll get angry or confused, not because you did anything wrong, but because they lost control. Here's what most people don't realize: words can build illusions. Silence reveals reality. You don't need to confront anyone. You don't need to test their loyalty. Just pull back your words and watch. Most people don't know how to handle this kind of energy. They're used to people reacting, begging, chasing closure, breaking down just to be heard. But when you stay silent, you exit the emotional battlefield with dignity, and your silence forces them to do the one thing they avoid most: face themselves. They expected you to fight for it, to chase, to come back. But you don't, and that scares them more than any confrontation ever could. Because now they realize they no longer have access to you. They don't hold the upper hand. They never thought you'd actually walk away, and that is when the real lesson begins. Because people don't learn from arguments, they learn from absence. They don't change when you scream, "Respect me." They change, if they ever do, when the silence makes them feel what they lost. And if they never learn, that's okay too. The lesson wasn't for them. It was for you. You learned that your peace doesn't need approval. You learned that not everyone deserves an explanation. You learned that sometimes silence isn't just strength, it's healing. When you detach in silence, you step out of toxic cycles. You stop bleeding in front of people who can't understand your wounds. You stop explaining storms to people who've only ever lived in comfort. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care too deeply about your soul to keep it in a place where it's being neglected. That's why the Stoics didn't react. They didn't chase justice. They didn't seek approval. They let silence carry the message. You don't have to shout, "I'm done." You simply become done. And that's real power. That's the kind of silence that terrifies those who thought they had control over you. So don't be afraid to let go. Detach, go quiet, and let them sit in the space where your voice used to be.